Oh, yeah, it's your boys back.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Sunday morning again.
I know. Actually, I don't mind it.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind
I'm
it.
probably a little bit fresher for this shit.
Yeah, actually, that is probably the best thing about the Sunday morning.
But yeah, it's good. So welcome back to this episode. What? 151.
151. Yeah.
Yeah, last episode was pretty good. Got a good response from George, man. So I have to actually sit through that myself again.
Yeah, I went too long again. I get carried away. But we had a lot to cover. He's had a lot of career. Yeah, we had the news with the next fight, so there was just like a lot to tear through.
That's a good one.
Smart, well-spoken gent as well. So I should put a timer on or something, but I can't be trusted.
I was just missed it. Oh, that's how it goes sometimes, though. But we do have another guest today from there, so let's introduce him. So, as an athlete, he's competed in the US, Canada, Korea, Thailand, Cambodia, Malaysia, Suriname, Sweden, China. Fought in Lupini. Was one of only two Americans to advance to the semi-finals in the Toyota Cup in the Muay Thai Marathon in Saraburi, Thailand. As a coach, he's produced 3 gold medalists in IFMA and has athletes that compete in promotions such as One Championship, Glory, Triumphant Combat Sports, UFC. He is the owner of Heritage Muay Thai and the president of USA Muaythai. And he has a book coming out very soon called Muay Thai Grit, Stories of an American Nak Muay. It is Michael Chase Corley. How are you today, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me.
It's good, man. Thanks for coming on. And also a shout out to Matt Lucas for, hooking us up.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas, for introducing us to your friends.
Yeah. So, Michael, when we have everyone first time on the podcast, we just want a bit of your backstory from there, which is your book. I read through it a little bit from there. Awesome, it's a really interesting read. I do recommend when it's out fully that everyone gets it. It's a really interesting book. But Dave, hey, tell us a bit of your story. How did you start off in martial arts? How did you get to Muay Thai and progress? Starting off, how did you progress as an athlete in Muay Thai?
I started off playing a lot of just team sports, baseball and basketball, and I used to watch. I always liked watch fights, and my dad's friend had fights on all the time, but he used to be a boxer himself. And he's like, "Why don't you come and try it one day?" And I never thought about trying boxing. I always like just watching it, So I went to the gym. Like the first 2 sessions I was there, I quit baseball and basketball that week. I put everything packed up all my gear, put it in front of the coach's, office, and they were laughing at me like, "You're gonna be a boxer?" And I was like, "Yeah," but it kept going from there. From a bunch of amateur boxing matches, I saw Eve Edwards at one of the matches. He's in the UFC at the time, and he was saying from the announcement, he goes, "I heard that you're from this part of town. Where do you train at?" Because there's no gyms out that way. So he said, "Why don't you come by my gym? I have one out there." It's a really tiny gym right next to a Popeye's Chicken in like a strip center, real small. And I got introduced to grappling and Muay Thai and everything. And from there, I just kind of gravitated towards the stand-up stuff from the boxing background. I liked all of the striking. So from there, I just kept trying to get as much experience as I could. It was tough living in Texas. There's not a lot of opportunities. So you got to fight in smokers and anything, Sanshao fights, MMA smokers, anything you can do just to get experience. And then I got a few amateur fights under my belt, and then I made the team to go to IFMA. And right then and there, I knew that I wasn't. You can use profanity on this.
Yeah, please.
I wasn't shit compared to I was okay nationally, but I just realized I was in B class at that time at the tournament, and the finals of the B class was some really solid fights, and then the A class was just killers. And I was like, man, I am so far behind. And at that point, that was when after the tournament, they said, "Hey, anybody want to go to Thailand? We'll give 25% off to go to Fairtex." I'm like, me, right away. So then from there, I got a more awakening going to the stadium. And I watched Sanchai fight in 2008. So I was seeing him in his prime and everything. So I just went home and I was just mind blown that, here I was. I thought I was one of the top guys in America. I probably was maybe, and I'm nothing on the world scale. So at that point, I did another USA team thing at the IFMA, and then I got the opportunity to work at the Fairtex in Bang Pleat. The manager was on he was going to go back to school, and I asked him if anybody had put any applications in. He goes, nobody's even knows that the job's open yet. I'm like, right here, put me in. I'm the man for the job, and I got the job, and I got to train, fight at a Fairtex Bang Pleat for a while. I got to go to the stadium all the time with the tourists that were coming there, and sometimes some of the kids were fighting there. So that's a long rant, but that's kind of how it all got started right there.
So that work that you were doing for Fairtex in Bang Pleat, like, well, what did the kind of day-to-day of that entail?
Mostly doing a lot of like office work with like the emails and coordinating some of the people coming there, basically booking their rooms, and then booking like other things they wanted to do. Like they want to go, I want to go here, I want to visit that. I would kind of help them out with that. Then the trainers, making sure, some of them come from a gym back home. Some of them, they've never trained before in their life, which I found that surprising. So they come there and they want to just jump in, never trained before. So I would kind of coordinate the training, make sure the trainers show up. Sometimes the trainers are in a little bit of they had a little too much to drink or some other things, and they sometimes got to go back to their room. So so then I would look over the training in the morning, make sure everybody was good, make sure everybody knew where to go to eat, all that good stuff, and then the afternoon I was able to train. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty good setup.
Yeah. So I got to live at the camp. I got to do the 2 meals like with the fighters, that goes with the morning and afternoon food. So it was a pretty good gig.
When you first went to Thailand from there, did you experience any kind of culture shock? That just go, or did you just kind of find yourself fitting in pretty nicely over there?
Yeah, I kind of just liked it. Kind of the whole sabai thing, relaxed a little too much sometimes.
Yeah.
But no, nothing too much, I guess. It was. I didn't have too much of a culture shock. I think I had more of a financial shock of how you really need to live like the Thai people. I couldn't be going out to Bangkok and going into the city because we're about 45 minutes away from the city at the time. The BTS didn't go out there, so like cab money, I was spending so much of my money on cabs and all that stuff. I needed to chill and stay at the camp more.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how did you find the training when you first got to Thailand as well, like compared to what you were used to back in the States, and then to Thailand? What was the differences?
I was having a solid pad man. I mean, a pad man throwing Muay Thai. Like when I was back home, I was having to arrange sparring. Every week was different. I was like, we'd have a set day of sparring days, and we'd have a set day where I would hit pads, but it was always never the same. I'd always have to call people and arrange stuff. And where there, you literally get outside your door and you got 12 and 13-year-olds that can toss me in the clinch and 20s. And you got multiple trainers that got great pad work. And when I got a taste of that, I was just like, I wanted to take as much advantage of it as I could. Because I did not want to go back home to that training.
Yeah. You mentioned as well that, because this is kind of common sentiment that we get from guests, in particular guests from the States, that say their kind of first introduction to kind of the world stage is at the IFMA Games, and that you sort of look at that and go, oh, there's a different way to do this. I'm interested in that. Like when we spoke to our mutual friend, Matt Lucas, he said he would like to see, even, now sort of 10 years on, he still doesn't think enough people from the US make the trip over to Thailand and spend some time there. In sort of 2008, when you went over, what was your exposure to Thailand Muay Thai like? Did you have access to watch a lot of it? Were you following it? Well, like how closely did you keep up with how things were in Thailand.
I wasn't really, keeping up with. I was watching more so like highlight videos, and
Yep.
I knew who some of the bigger names were, but I wasn't like I couldn't tell you who's top in each weight in the stadiums at that time. And then I didn't even my whole philosophy was just like just just fuck up your opponent, from boxing, just go beat him up, I wasn't a point in like a very, good evasive fighter. So I was always trying to just get rid of people. And in Muay Thai, that's not it all the time. And when I first went to the stadium, when Sanchai fought Sanchai Noi, I thought Sanchai Noi was like bringing it to him, and at that time I really didn't know like the full, you know, I say it in my book. There's like a time when like Sanchai like offsets him in the clinch and like holds the knee there, and everybody's just like, oh man, like the gamblers, you're already seeing like the money change hands and everything. Like the fight's over. I'm like, what's going on here? I didn't know any of the intricacies of the Thai scoring at that time, so I was just thrown right into it. And I think back what you were saying, like a lot of people back home, we have so many different states that have so many different rules for Muay Thai. It's frustrating. So if there was just one Muay Thai rule set that was brought over and all the states here carried it out, it'd be a lot easier. Until then, there's just really need to go to Thailand. If you're under 170 pounds, you really just need to go to Thailand.
Is that something you encourage a lot in your students? If you've got someone who's looking pretty good, getting some experience, you kind of give them that little push to go over?
I have probably 3 or 4 students of mine that have gone over, and a couple of them got into like the whole that relaxed lifestyle a little too much. They were drinking with the trainers after training.
Yeah,
pretty slow.
Yeah.
Some like one of my top fighters. She went there before an IFMA, but she was at Sang Tien Noise camp in Pakistani. There's no nonsense at that camp. So
and a big ass pig.
So I wasn't worried about anyone going there. If you're going there, you're going to be gonna be some rough training. But I encourage anyone to go there. I think at a certain point, I think in the U.S. when you're an amateur, a lot of these guys. They want to keep getting experience, but they kind of hit a plateau with the amateurs where they might, and then if they go pro, the problem is they can't get fights because there's not that many fights. So I think when you start to become, 20 or 30 fights as an amateur, and you're looking to go pro, like there's no other route really. You can't fight 2 or 3 times a year and get your game up. In Thailand, you could fight, 15 times in a year if you wanted to. So.
Yeah. Staying on that tangent a bit over there, how does it work in the US in terms of like, so you got things like smokers, amateurs, pros, like how does that all look? Like, like if I was just a student, just starting like, okay, how do I progress from like basically just starting off to a pro? How does it usually go about that?
Yeah. There's New York, California, some of the parts of the Northeast. They have shows, but they're kind of spread out, and a lot of people outside of that don't get anything. So they're like doing smoker fights, inner clubs, whatever people call them. That's their only experience. And at the end of the year or in the summer months, they all just save up and go to tournaments. So that's the only way you're going to get experience. Usually for the regions in the U.S. Now we're trying. We have stuff with the youth now that we're doing, like these youth development things where they're like doing the no head contact up to like age 12, so we want to give kids opportunities to start learning the game, the footwork, the scoring, and it started to produce really well with our athletes here. But like during my time, and I would say like even 10 years after that, people had there's no way to get experience. So like going back to your question, I guess you do some smokers, maybe get a couple amateur regional fights, maybe. And then you got to go to just like these national tournaments is the best way to get the amateur experience if you're not in one of those regions of California and New York. And then after that, you're a pro. It doesn't mean you're gonna get pro fights. You sell tickets. Like a lot of what good am I from Texas being flown to New York for a professional fight?
Yeah.
I'm only they usually time they fly anybody out is to be the opponent, to get beat by the local guy that's the pro they're grooming, to sell tickets and whatnot. So the sport is at that point right here in the U.S. There's a couple promotions trying to change it, but it's kind of what the state is right now.
Yeah, it just makes it like seem like a hard way to produce that grassroots talent for America. It seems because it just it seems a bit disjointed, isn't it, between every state and the lack of fight, the ability to actually fight.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's rough. That's why some of these guys they fight in everything. They'll fight kickboxing like Waco rules. They'll fight in a Muay Thai fight, anything just to get experience. It's that hard to do out here. So, I mean, again, if they're serious, man, please go to Thailand. but if you're older, the youth, we got stuff happening for the youth right now. But the older people in America, I recommend them go to Thailand.
Well, the US youth team is like super strong, right? Like you guys always medal really highly at the Youth World Championships.
Yes. I would attribute a lot of that to the youth development league that we have that kind of gets, they're at like gymnasiums and they have a bunch of clubs in a region come together and do these like little one-day tournament type things. And then I think just taking large teams and getting the coaches and the athletes exposure, kind of like how I told my story. I went to IFMA and I got my mind blown. It's just taking more and more people there and then taking them back, and then they all are like, wow, okay, now we gotta level up, So getting more and more people to go to it, I think, has helped out a lot with the U.S. as well.
So I want to get into talking in detail about the book and some of the stories in it, but just to keep kind of following the path of your career to sort of paint the picture first of all. So you did a lot of it, like, we mentioned in sort of the intro, you fought all over the world, had some experience on top shows within Thailand and fought in a crazy number of other countries as well. So upon kind of getting back to the States after your travels and even after your fight career, how did you sort of transition? Because obviously you're working, you're the president of the United States Muay Thai Federation. Is it still? Yes, yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, internet's not that great in Australia, no matter how.
Yeah,
but we're good now.
Yeah. So my question basically was just talk about how, I guess, so you mentioned like when you went to Thailand, you were sort of just kind of oblivious to a lot of the scoring elements of the sport, a lot of this kind of officiating things. Now you're working with the United States Muay Thai Federation. Just kind of describe that transition, sort of what motivated you to take that kind of leadership role and some of the changes you sort of made coming in.
I had submitted some athletes years after that I was training and to the teams to try and get on the teams, and the organization of how the teams were selected and how things were getting put together always seemed like last minute, and it wasn't really like a clear path or understanding of how to even be on a U.S. team. That was number one. I was like a concern of mine. And then in 2016, I had, there was no one filling the role for the coach, and they'd asked me about, I was like, hey, I'll go coach the team, and I went to the championships, and I heard at that time when we were there at the championships that there was a chance that it was going to get provisionally Olympic recognized that year, and that if federations didn't have all these things in place, that they could, be kicked out and whatnot. I just saw that we were there with a really small team. It was like 5 or 6 athletes. We had some uniforms that were like sketched. They were like, ironed on shit in the rooms and stuff like that. And I just not, I know this is all volunteer stuff in the U.S., so I don't discredit them for that, the previous people, but it was just, it just needed an overhaul. Our athletes needed better notification. Our athletes needed to know what they were getting into. Some of these people didn't understand that the A class has like stadium killers in there. They got people from Belarus and Russia, and they like, oh, I didn't know that, and they're getting like wrecked. So after that year of coaching, I was like, man, the next election thing, when is it? And it was like that year, 2016. I was like, I've got to come in here and like take control of this. Like I didn't want to see U.S. athletes going over there and being like the easy match. You know what I mean? That shouldn't happen. Like you get all America, you're like, oh yes. I'm like, no more. So after that, just kind of overhauled things, brought in good people, good coaches, good referees, good judges, and just started trying to educate people on what real Muay Thai is. And from there, I think it's gone up pretty well since then.
The level of talent itself, it seems to it seems just to be on the rise. In particular, it's like when did Luke go to Cancun?
2018.
28. It's like that was good. That was good. Yeah, like we had one of our own boys in the finals against one of your guys
Really?
not 86 kilo class.
No, 91
kilo class. Yeah.
Okay.
Your boy just edged it out. Just. It's a good match though. Yeah, but didn't expect that. Like the Americans, like, damn, really good. They came from really strong. But because of that IFMA in particular, because it was I guess it's closer than other ones.
Yes.
Did that bring a bit of a rise, or in terms of people wanting to do it afterwards or gearing up to it?
Yeah. Because it was it was in Cancun. Like everybody's like, damn, we'll go to Cancun. And then the other one, it's not so much on their pocketbook. I think Australia is the same as well. A lot of the athletes got to pay their own way on some things.
Yeah, have to. Yeah.
So. Yeah, that was that team. We put a large team out there for that one. Not the best results we got. We're still trying to get our adult team has gotten better every year. Our females are very strong in America. We've done really well with them. At the adult males, it's been tough with the A class and B class both. So it's tough.
Do you think that's down to do you think you always get kind of like is there a bit more need for encouragement for sort of the top US, like the truly A-class US fighters to get involved in the IFMA, or you just think it's grassroots?
They don't want to come out of pocket. They don't want to pay. And then the ones that are residents that are living in Thailand, they don't want to leave Thailand. They might be on a visa. Some of them have had visa things, and some of them are like, I'm broke living in Thailand. I can't go to an IFMA.
Yeah.
Hopefully, my goal is when I'm out of this thing is that we can fully pay for a team to have the best. So at the World Games is coming to the US in 2022. That one, I will make sure every one of our best guys is there. They'll be fully funded, everything. So if we can't fully fund a World Games team in Alabama, right next door to us, we can't. That's not good.
Was that World Games supposed to have already happened? Has that been?
Yeah, it's supposed to happen this year, 2021. They had to push it back. So.
And so, did you have a team selected already?
No. We're gonna do like a tournament for it, like a qualifying tournament.
Yeah.
And that's the thing here. We don't have A, B class like a lot of the countries do. We have pro and amateur, and it really messes up some of the stuff that we do because some of our top amateurs stay amateur because they can't get fights as a pro, whereas you can't go back and forth in the U.S. So if you're once you go pro, that's it. But you should be able to still fight an amateur that has 55 fights. That's how I see it. But, at a tournament. So here, pros can't go into amateur tournament style unless you're in a couple states allow it. But it's tricky. But hopefully at the beginning of next year, we're going to have a World Games qualifier, and that's going to be really cool. We're going to invite all the top pros. We're going to tell everybody that the winners of these divisions are going to be fully funded. So please do it. Represent your country.
And when it comes to kind of creating those pathways to provide funding, is kind of an enabling factor in that the sort of Olympic Committee recognition for Muay Thai? Is that something that could drive creating those opportunities?
Definitely could. And our Olympic, it's really weird. Our Olympic Committee says that we're not working with a like a high enough budget to be. And I'm like, well, it goes with the recognition. If you give us the recognition, we get the bigger sponsors. We get the bigger. We have a thing here that if you get Olympic recognized, that you're the now governing body of your particular sport, where you're not saying that other governing bodies can't do stuff, but we don't have to go through our state athletic commissions.
Yeah.
So if we get Olympic recognized and USOC recognized, United States Olympic Committee recognized, we could be doing our own shows, which would be a hell of a lot better than what some of these other sanctioning bodies and shows do, because it's bad out here sometimes. Some of these shows are like Wild West crazy stuff, not Muay Thai.
Yeah. And for yourself, as far as goals are concerned, like, because I know like it's been sort of similar here in Australia with our our equivalent in Muay Thai Australia, like the Olympic recognition has been a big part of kind of like and driving a little bit of recognition with sporting bodies. But there's probably not a lot of optimism. There's a separation between achieving Olympic recognition and then actually being on a pathways to feature in the Olympics. For you, as far as objectives are concerned, are you guys trying to drive work to actually see Muay Thai in the Olympics, or it's not really a factor?
I mean, I'd love to see it, but my goal is to just get our United States Olympic Committee to recognize that it's so. This year, it's on the table, I think, for the games in Tokyo, that they might be discussing it getting fully recognized. But like you said, that doesn't mean it's going to be in the Olympics, like, right away. I just want our Olympic Committee to recognize it, because then it's going to give kids and athletes, adult athletes, so much more opportunities to compete and be recognized by the United States Olympic Committee, and bring like prestige. And Muay Thai can be a hard sell to parents, because you look up Muay Thai, people getting split open and everything, but it has that Olympic rings next to it. It's a little better, They come into the gym, got the Olympic feel, That's what I think. I want to see it just get recognized by our National Olympic Committee. I know a lot of countries have gotten it, and it's like they get to wear their Olympic Committee's patch and stuff on their uniforms. It's cool. That's like a goal of mine to have it done here in the U.S.
And how kind of do you feel like that's something that there's really solid strides being made towards, or you feel there's a lot of roadblocks there?
Definitely. We had that whole our packet was received in 2018 to be recognized, and basically they told us that we were on hold because of like the gymnastics scandal with like the harassment of athletes and coaches, and it's all politics and money, and it's not really just about sport like it should be.
Yeah.
I hope y'all aren't watching this.
When it comes to like that, I'm always interested to get this take from sort of other places, because I know here in Australia, things as far as adoption is concerned, some people love that kind of IFMA format. Some people have that, I guess, kind of like professional purist kind of frame of mind, where they don't really like that tournament structure, and that's why it's kind of a split down the middle. Like, we don't do for our amateurs the tournament thing the same way you guys do in the States. We have one IFMA qualifying tournament over a weekend once a year, and that's kind of it. There's not a lot. There are like choice other ones, especially it's picking up a little bit for the youth now, but there's not. Our amateurs just fight as amateurs on kind of commercial professional shows. Yeah, they don't show up to a kind of like a ring on a basketball court and get the opportunity to fight multiple times a weekend. And I think one of the reasons for that is there is such a division in that. I guess Australia's Muay Thai scene is so closely rooted to Thailand that a lot of trainers that came up that way, they're not kind of interested in putting their guys in shin guards and having them fight. There's a big kind of stigma that the scoring is super, super different, and there's something to be figured out. So I'm interested in the States. Like, do you find across the board the adoption of that I guess what you would call Olympic style or IFMA style of Muay Thai? Like people are really into it. People are kind of against it. Is it split? How do you find that?
We have that. I'd say a lot of people are interested in it, but I think people have seen what the benefits are of getting the experience.
Yeah.
So if you look at I think some of the top Americans um, that are signed to promotions and stuff have all gotten experience through our IFMA teams. So like Janet Todd, the
Yep.
one championship, world title, she's probably had 15 or so IFMA style fights, in Pan Am, South American Games, the World Championships, all that. Troy Jones, he's probably not as many as Janet, probably 10 or so. And then a lot of our youth that are just turned pro. Like one of my athletes, Rebecca Irwin, she's probably done like 15 or so IFMA fights and got like 3 gold medals. It's a good base for you to go pro. Now the pros, no, I don't see it like it's not great for them to go fight. It's not cool to go to a show and watch people in tournament like wear, you know what I mean? Like with the tank top and the shin guards and all that kind of stuff. But as far as like amateur, I think it's good. I always tell people, would you rather fight in the gear and get 15 fights in a year or fight on shows 3 times in a year? And that kind of tells me what your goals are in this sport. Are you doing it to be on Instagram and look cool? Or are you trying to like get good? Because I'm going to take the 15 fights in shin guards dressed up in IFMA, whatever, So that's my take on it. I don't know. I think that's what, when people see that, the guys are being successful from getting that experience, I hope that it spreads in the U.S., that it's a good thing. Like I said, I don't want it to be something where it's like a show. I want it to be more like tournament,
Yeah. And you think like it is that truly amateur format. It's a conversation we've had with, guests a couple of times in that putting on a show is like a big financial risk. And as once you kind of tie that financial risk to athletes' ability to compete. If you're doing it in a very much commercial structure, you won't be letting your amateurs get in there 5, 6, 7 times. Whereas if you really downscale things and you don't, even kind of charge an entry fees, that's how amateur sports works for everyone else. Yeah. Just change the way the money comes in. You actually, it's just about that focus. Are you trying to make money on the door, or are you putting on an event for the express purpose of getting guys fights? I think that's definitely a frame of mind that we need to adopt a little bit better here.
Yes, I'm sure you've, just like us, you've probably had a lot of shows come and go throughout the years.
Yep.
They tried to go big too fast, and it's just start small. The sport truly isn't big enough yet worldwide, and I think we got to get back to how boxing is in the U.S. Where you might be fighting in a gymnasium. Yeah, there might be a little bit nicer amateur boxing match the next weekend, but it's about the experience. And if we're going to be taking on the world's best, like in the Thais, or taking on this is what we need. We have to get the experience.
And I think it comes up so much as well. Like a point that I make often is like everyone kind of, like a lot of the old heads that are not super into the tournament thing, they'll say like, oh, look at Thailand. Like they don't wear shin guards in Thailand. They just start fighting which is like, it's not even worth getting into because it's just so not comparable. But that's not actually, obviously Thailand is the motherland, but it's not the best place to compare Western countries to. I think the model that we could probably look to is like, look at Belarus and look at Russia and look at kind of these countries, is that the way that their guys get so good, and they are really good when they go professional, is they're not in a hurry to enter that professional format. Like they fight hundreds of times, like literally hundreds of times with the pads on, and they'll just show up. It's not this big, like you've not got guys with a couple of years of experience and a couple of amateur fights doing an 8-week fight camp to go and get, like, if you're doing kind of fight camps for your amateur fights, as people often do in countries like Australia and the States, over in Belarus, in your 8-week fight camp, their up and coming amateurs have fought 12 times. And what does more good for you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You look at a lot of the names, I guess you would say, like Andre Kulibin. I think he has somewhere around 50 or so professional style fights with the no shin guards, like a pro style fight. But he has over 100 IFMA style fights.
Yeah.
And he's a very successful foreign Muay Thai fighter. It's same for a lot of the Russian and Belarusian fighters. I don't know why we. I think it'd be great to adapt that. It's good. For me, I think it's a great thing. But we have the same stuff here. It's like we don't. I don't teach my guys that scoring. I'm like, we teach the stadium stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. Who's your favorite stadium fighter right now? Oh, I don't. They don't even know
who's such a clock. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of like kind of over romanticized ideas about pure. I hate that word. Muay Thai that like are actually not even really like it is just romanticization. It's not actually something people are practice or even have the knowledge to practice. Like I think as far as getting amateurs ready, you don't really have to overcomplicate it. Just come up with a format where they can fight a lot and structure it in a way where they can fight a lot. Like people are saying, and it comes back to your point. People say, oh, we don't like guys fighting in shin guards. It's like, but if you put a pair of shin guards on them, they can fight way, way, way more times. So by the time you take those shin guards off, they're much better. It's not really rocket science.
Yeah, we have people that get upset that are their kids. This is the saddest one. They have their kids. They want them fighting in these like full on like fights. These kids are like 10 years old and they're not really doing the skills. They're like blitzing across the ring, going just hitting each other in the face. Nothing that's developing the experience or anything like that. So when we come up with these rules like youth development league and stuff like that, where there's no head contact, they can clinch and knee, they can teep and kick, and it starts developing the kid's skill and moving, and then there's some people that say that, oh, we don't do that. I teach my kids. Oh, you teach your kids the blitz. Okay, cool.
You can only go so far with that stuff.
We're not gonna just like when I'm president. There's always gonna be people, and like I just say, we're not gonna win them all over, but just win as many as we can. I'm glad that it's the same in Australia. I got the crazy. I call them the purist, but yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's always those people like they're also not doing anything to grow the sport either. They're just sitting there and talking about, well, we do this and we do that. Well, what are you doing to grow the sport? They're never doing anything. So
yeah, just so like attached to. I mean, and it's the same thing. Like a lot of the time, it's the people who are, the people that really want to push it to go this certain way. It's such a like. But in my day, this is how we did it. And it's like, in what sport do you get anywhere from trying to keep things exactly how they were 15 years ago? Like what platform for development is like it's just the logic is automatically flawed when your reasoning for doing something is this is how it used to be.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And it's like, okay, but back when you were fighting, we didn't have YouTube, right? Like we can go and see. And we didn't have like access to world championships and have this kind of like open visibility into what's going on in the rest of the world. So it's kind of like you're saying, all right, before we were isolated and we just kind of had to make it up, now we have kind of well-traveled people in our midst. So, people have gone around the world and seen these things and brought back info. And you just kind of go, yes, but I want to ignore that and continue to do it the way that I came up with on my own when I was fighting. It's just kind of like, I don't know if it's a confirmation bias thing, like people are attached to the own sort of philosophies. Like I'm not sure what the logic is. People get so stuck in their ways. I think in a lot of conversations that we've had with our friends in the US, it seems to be, I actually think a lot of the attitudes in your part of the world and ours are fairly similar. Is that in any kind of progressive sort of sweeping changes to the sport, you just get so much pushback from people that have this picture of how it was in their day and don't want it to be different ever.
Yeah, it goes back to the experience. Like, do you want your guys fighting more or not? Do you want to be pure Muay Thai and do it all the exact ways it is in Thailand to fight twice a year, or would you like your guy to fight 15 times a year?
Yeah.
And that's my only answer to them.
It's like in this case, yeah, it's like more is better.
Yeah.
No matter which way you can get it. Speaking of like, experience wise as well, let's kind of draw it back to your experiences again. So like, in your book, like you got lots of great stories from you as an athlete from there. What's some of your, like some of your fondest, like fight memories back in the day?
Oh, I would say my first like pro fight after IFMA in 2009 when I go to Junction on Fair Texas Village in the Isan area in like Chayapum. I went and fought. We had no idea who we were fighting. It was out in like it was like a field next to his parents' house. They had like the green nets set up, a loud PA screaming, and just no like chairs or anything. It was just people standing all around the ring. It was pretty wild, and I I didn't know who I was fighting till like 20 minutes before the fight, and it was like some French guy with all this like sack yacht on there. I was like, what's he doing out here in Chayapum? I was like, I was a little taken back. I was like, what's going on here? Like the first round, you know, like I said, I was still young in the game. I didn't like doing the whole like, oh, I'm gonna feel him out kind of thing, But I was, he was Junk sounds like just start slow, feel him out, So I go out there and start slow, and then like the last 10 seconds or so of the round, this dude starts going crazy on me, and I like just got a kick really bad off my knee, and I was like, my knee damn near gave out there, and I was like, man, I'm getting fucked up here. I gotta stop this. So like the round ended, and literally he's in the crowd like gambling with everybody because this is his hometown. He's like in the crowd gambling. One hand's got a beer, the other hand's like maneuvering things, and I'm like, my other friends that were there, they were just kind of yelling from the ground, and then it's like 10 seconds before the round starts. He jumps up there and he's like, hey, you punch really hard. Punch him. Block the low kick. And I was like, you got any water? He's like, no, go. I was like, okay. So the next round, I did good. I blocked a few, and then I landed a good right hand and started elbowing him and kneed him in the head. And then he like turned away and asked his corner to stop it. So they waved it off. And my knee was so jacked up from the first round because I was trying to play it cool and like this here, and then the guy just rips, some kicks on me. I didn't see, I wasn't expecting. And the funny thing was, after I won, all the villagers and everybody was like pissed off at me. They were all like looking at me. I was like, why are they not happy with me? And he told me that the odds had got up to like 5-1 against me after the first round because I got my ass whooped in the first round. But I was like just trying to play it cool, and do the whole to take the first 2 rounds off. No, man, like this guy's trying to kill me. And so yeah, Junction ended up betting for me in the second round, and I won the fight. And then they thought that I threw the first round on purpose. So they got really pissed off at me, saying it was like that Junction came back and screwed over his own village people and all that stuff. I'm like, no, man, I wasn't in on some job, man. I got my ass whooped the first round. So that was one of my more memorable ones. And then I guess fighting in Lumpini was really cool. The old Lumpini, even though it was the Saturday afternoon show and there was maybe like 200 people in there, it was just the fact that I had been to Lumpini so many times, and now I was in the actual ring. I just had it was really cool. Yeah, those were it. Those are probably my top 2 stories of most enjoyable fights, I guess. That was like my first few, so
Yeah. Tell us. What I wanted to ask, I guess, was like I'm interested to hear sort of more about the book. I want to give you the chance to kind of tell some of the Aussies what they can expect from it. Because it comes out is it tomorrow? The day after tomorrow, right? It's your money out Tuesday.
You can get the paperback now, I believe, and the Kindle is available on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell a story that like I think there's so many like these fight books or movies that we've seen. There are all these like feel good stories, like he came from nothing and he made it to the top, or they faced some adversary that knocked them down and then they came back and won. I just want to tell like a true story of like someone that didn't become a champion that fought champions that gave it a try. And, you know, I think that's what people need to see is like, if you see kind of what I did and you're not going above that, then you're not going to be a champion. Because look what I did, and I still didn't become a champion. You know, just kind of telling more of a real story rather than I think a lot of books that are out there or movies with fighting is that it's always just so like, you know, the guy's going to win in the end. You know, these guys are going to. I just wanted to show that you can lose, you can be embarrassed, and you know, come back from it and use fighting as like the fuel to, you know, overcome, you know, life's obstacles and whatnot.
Yeah. And is writing a book something that you've wanted to do for a long time? Was it just kind of like one of those pandemic things?
No, I just wanted to have something, you know, like how many times like we just get so many people come in the gym and we literally have like the photos on the wall of like the athletes that I train and then like old pictures of me like in, you know, like fight stuff. You know, we have like old photos up on the wall and posters, and the people come in and they're just like, y'all got any fighters here? Do y'all actually train to fight? And I'm like, what the hell? What do you mean? I just want to like give them a book and be like, yeah, I wrote a book on this fighting stuff, man. I don't know. No, I just wanted to have I don't think I wasn't a very like, when I was fighting, it wasn't all that, you know, as big as social media stuff going on and everything. So I just want to have something to kind of pass on to my students and, you know, and pass on to anybody in Muay Thai just to raise awareness of the sport really, and just talk about, like I said, you know, you're all the ups and downs of fights, and at the end, I didn't win any world titles. There's no belts. There's nothing. Just some, you know, cool fights and cool experiences. And from all those experiences, I became better from it. Better person, better coach, more knowledgeable of the game, so I can pass on stuff. You know, as a official, I've done officiating. I've promoted shows. Now I'm president of USA Muaythai. Just gaining that experience to pass on to others to make them better.
Yeah, and I think to me that is like you make such a good point of like how every piece of sort of fighting and martial arts media it does kind of follow that same of, you know, you've got your protagonist sets a goal, achieve some major adversity on the way to that goal, and then defies all odds to achieve it in the end. Like it's the same thing over and over again. But well, what Muay Thai especially, like what combat sports is lacking is kind of just sort of just truer to life stories of like, you know, all of the other stuff that happens. But what Muay Thai is missing as much thing is just like people such as yourself. These stories are kind of limited to people within gyms, and there are, especially for like, I think someone like you that's coming from a place that in USA that's not kind of you know, revered worldwide as a you know, doesn't really have a foundationary place in Muay Thai. It's something that's kind of developing off of experiences like your own. Like you just had to look around and say, you know, we're not really doing this right here, and then take it to the source and bring that back. I think a resource such as your book is so positive for the community to say, like, you know, look, this is what we did. We just realized we had to do it differently, and this is where it comes from. And I love what you touch on there about how, like, it's not just for you about your fight career. Like, you fought getting into a place where you can train other athletes, things like this. So I think like it's a really positive move for people like you to have such interesting stories and have such, you know, impactful stories to get that into print and just be able to kind of immortalize it in that way. But sort of what was the process of writing the book like? You know, it's obviously not something everyone does. Anything surprise you about it? Like, you know, because obviously for you, you've got all these stories. Kind of coming out with a finished product in a book it's, I guess, not so much just about having the stories and then getting them out onto paper. To describe that process, it come naturally, harder than you expected. Well, what was that like?
Yeah, that's funny. At first I just like would just have all these stories and I just wrote them down. And I remember being in Thailand for IFMA or yeah, I think it was IFMA. I knew Matt Lucas had released some books in the past, and I was like, what do you think of looking over this stuff and see if it's something that'd be interesting? And he's yeah, let's put something together. And, man, it took us forever. Like I just never wanted to like I wasn't sure. I had to make it. I had to tone down a lot of the stories and make it PG-13. I mean,
Oh, that's not fun.
maybe maybe down the road I want to make like a fiction novel based upon true stories, and then maybe like change the names a little bit.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but yeah, I have some stuff, as far as like my position goes in the sport and stuff like that. I don't think it's probably good to put out some of the stuff. And then, you know, uh, probably the last 2 weeks before it came out, I was like, I was nervous to have my mom read it. I was like, oh man, she's gonna be like, "Shit, I didn't realize you broke so many limbs. Like, what's wrong with you? Why did you keep fighting?" And I'm like, oh. And then, you kind of I kind of put it out there. I put down in the book that I was down upon fights, that emotionally down, losing, and coming back from that, and how I was dealing with it. Yeah, just kind of you're like kind of not you just worried, I guess, on how it's going to be received. Like what do people think
Yeah.
about all of that? Because I don't, like you said, everything is always a feel good story, and it's like it's not really real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So like the people that's listening to this as well, we'll put like the link where to get the book in the show notes as well. So obviously get the book, guys. that's what I want there. We'll just finish off here because like it's terrible today. I'm gonna have to do a lot of editing. But there was a couple questions that were for the Instagram from there. So I got one guy, Eugenio Fabella, says, do you miss fighting?
Oh yeah, man. Like I love coaching. So coaching is like my outlet. So some days it's like my fighters are like, man, why is he going so hard today? Like maybe it's like my way of dealing with stuff that I couldn't do anymore. Like back in the day, I would go and train and do this and that. Now when I'm gonna go and I'm gonna take it out on my students. No, I'm joking. But
Hey, I respect it.
yeah, I love training, and I want my biggest thing is to make people better than me. So way better than me. Like so I've already surpassed that with a couple of my students, and I just want to keep it going. And then one day, maybe they have students that surpass them, and then at the end of the day, where did it all come from? Is like that's like I think any martial artist dream if they're in it for the right reasons. That's
Yep.
Yeah, I do miss it, but that's why I have to be around it. I have to coach, and that's why if I wasn't, I'd still have to be around the sport somehow. Like as a president, I've had times where my athletes aren't on the team at all, not even close that year, and I still love it, still the same. So, yeah.
Nice. Just one more question here is from Neural8 on Instagram, or Kenny.
Oh, I know this guy's might be a weird question.
Yeah. When did Krav Maga become influential to you?
Oh shit! Do y'all have a Krav Maga problem out there in Australia?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not a big problem. Like,
yeah, it just pops up and you just go.
Yeah, it pops up randomly. Like it seems like if some like little kind of random street corner gym opens, like it's always a Krav Maga gym, but they don't seem to be. It's not like you don't know anyone who does Krav Maga.
It's it's just been in martial arts, a lot of people come in and like whenever I've been teaching, and like somebody from Taekwondo or from karate or something, they usually come in very humble and nice. They're like, hey, I don't know anything about this type of stuff, but I used to do Taekwondo, and I'm looking to learn this Muay Thai. I'm like, oh, cool. Well, I think you're gonna like it. Then, but when some of the people, I think he's referring to a couple stories at the old gym, the Krav Maga people would like literally tell me that, oh, we don't jab in Krav Maga. I'm like, well, you're in Muay Thai, so we don't jab, right? And like they're always telling me like this sweep isn't gonna do this or do that, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? You came here just to tell me how great Krav Maga is, and then when it comes sparring time,
yeah.
Oh man, they're of all things, just like everything else. There's some good ones out there, but
Yeah.
more often than not, anything that you can get certified in a weekend for is not probably going to be good.
I actually that does jog my memories. Like I've had some Krav Maga people come to begin. Like it's actually very similar to like your stories. Like these guys come in and they'll explain to me that like Muay Thai is it's for sport and that's cool, but Krav Maga like it's for the streets, like it's for the real world. And that's why they were just kind of like, I don't know. It's the same thing. I don't know why you came to learn from me. Like I'll be teaching and they'll be like, the reason we wouldn't do that in Krav Maga is because it wouldn't work. And it's like, but they've never sparred or anything. Like they have no real contact experience. Like they've just done it at the air.
Yeah, man, you're speaking the exact stories I've dealt with. Yeah, I feel bad. I feel bad, but I've had a couple of students come in that were testing for their Krav Maga black belt, which I don't know. I thought that they didn't do that, but anyway, they're like, we just want to get a couple, get some stuff in because we're testing for it. Their kids, and they were like, one was 16 and one was like 14, and they're testing for their Krav Maga black belt. And I was just kind of like, all right, let's do some basic stuff on the pads before I throw you in class. No idea how to block punches. No idea how to block a kick. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, we can't even put you in beginner's class right now. Let's move you over here and I'm going to keep working with you. And they're going for their black belt, the next week. So I don't know, man. Why you got to bring up Krav Maga?
Yeah. Keep your Krav Maga questions next time. I'll finish with you on a question I like to ask questions with people at your experience level. A lot of the sort of sentiment is that like, upon your travel and coming back, you get kind of like your eyes opened. And that's, I guess, is a lot of the time the transition from fighter to coach is like, these are the things that no one could tell me. That kind of thing. I guess my question is from where you're at now, sitting on the other side of it now. So you were a fighter before, a coach now, also a qualified official now. You have that presidential role. If you could go back to sort of 2008 before you went to Thailand, and you can just give yourself just one overarching piece of advice, you can just give your younger self one tip. What would it be?
Oh man. Don't go home. Don't go home until your goals are done.
Yeah.
I was just burned out from work, and it was just overwhelming. Whereas I wasn't, as some people go there and they literally just train, fight, relax. Mine was, train, fight, and work, and sometimes the work was a little overbearing and kind of, stressed me out. To and when I went back home, like in the book, everything went downhill. I was still trying to fight the people I was fighting at that level when I was in Thailand, and it just wasn't the same. You can't. I say in there, I think if you're not having a world-class camp, how can you take on world-class opponents?
Yeah.
And that was like the whole. It was. I still had goals that I didn't finish in fighting, and if I was just stayed a little bit longer, maybe gone home for a little bit and gone right back, would have been a better thing. Where I think that probably happens to a lot of people. They go there, they come back and say they're going to come back again, and then life gets in the way. And the best thing to do is just stay there and keep going until the job's done. I guess be my advice.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, cool. So just get my mic there. Look, Michael, we really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your stories and that, and having a chat with us was awesome. It was a good one.
Thank you guys.
We'll play the intro soon, but hang out after the intro from there, just a chat from there. But people that are listening from there, where can they catch you? Like
the gym is Heritage Muay Thai, so the website's heritagemuaythai.com. We're on Instagram as well, Heritage Muay Thai. My personal one is Corley, HMT for Heritage Muay Thai. My book's on Amazon. Check it out. Also, all the people listening about in the U.S., make sure you register your gym. Get on the USA
Yeah.
Muay Thai website, usamuaythai.sport. None of us, myself, for the last 4 years, none of us take any salary or take any money. We do all this volunteer, and all the money from registrations of athletes and coaches and gyms goes towards our USA team. So just keep supporting the sport, and all you guys in Australia, you support your federation too.
Exactly. Cool. Thank you. All right, guys. We'll catch you next time, dude. See ya.
See ya.